What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning into yet another episode of the Sports Muse Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Brumley, and I am joined by John, who doesn't have a picture today, but he's rocking some Falcons gear. John, how you doing?
Pretty good. Falcons was my first team that I love because from Georgia, so I guess, but I don't really care about them anymore. Just a little fun tip.
The Dirty Birds. I love it.
Yeah.
So Atlanta Falcons, guys, drop your season prediction in the comments. Don't be scared, homie. We want to see what you guys have to say. We love interacting with you guys, so please drop your season prediction in the comments. Click like and subscribe if you like the show. If not, then, forget about us and we're dead to you. I get it. When talking about the Falcons, let's start off with their additions and re-signings. They got Deon Buchanan, Dante Fowler, Todd Gurley, Charles Harris, and Hayden Hurst were some of the big ones. How do you feel about those additions?
Love the Hayden Hurst one. Austin Hooper left, so they had to get someone. And Hayden Hurst, he's someone that the Ravens drafted. He was the one that they drafted before Lamar, right?
Yep.
And so, obviously he had some upside, and I think Mark Andrews just kind of came in and stole that job from him. And I don't think that it's anything against Hayden Hurst. I definitely think he has a talent, but so I definitely think he could step in and contribute the way Austin Hooper did. But Todd Gurley, if he can stay healthy, I like him a lot. I don't see any reason why he couldn't be better than Devontae Freeman was the last year or so. But that's only if he stays healthy and his knees just don't give out on him. But other than that, Laquan Treadwell, he's Laquan Treadwell. It was just like a mediocre additions for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're kind of trying to catch lightning in a bottle with either Dante Fowler or Charles Harris. Charles Harris has been pretty abysmal thus far in his career. Hayden Hurst, you're hoping he can step into that Austin Hooper role. Todd Gurley has to be the oldest man in the world that's in his mid-20s. I feel like he's been around the league forever, and this dude has arthritis in his knees. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But when we talk about departures, we got Devontae Freeman, Kenyon Barner, Justin Hardy, Austin Hooper, Ty Sambrailo, I don't know how to say that, Adrian Claiborne, Devondre Campbell, Vic Beasley, Desmond Trufant, and Jonathan Cyprien. They definitely lost some guys. Vic Beasley had that one just ridiculous monster year, and then he's kind of fallen flat on his face. I've always liked Desmond Trufant. He's been beat up a ton, but I really like him. I actually thought he was kind of an underrated corner. Devontae Freeman's been there for a minute, but he started to slow down a little bit. Austin Hooper, I'm actually kind of curious to see how he does with Cleveland, because was he a product of that fantastic Atlanta offense, or is he actually a really talented guy? We'll kind of see about that. How do you feel about the departures?
Yeah, I agree with you. They definitely lost some guys. I thought Devontae Freeman would probably get signed by someone, but he might be one of those running backs that as soon as someone goes down, he gets signed. And with Austin Hooper leaving, he did have production, and Hayden Hurst might not come in and be able to fill that. So I think with that, that might be a tough loss. It's hard to see. But I kind of figured that they were letting him go, Vic Beasley, because that they were trying to fix the cap situation, which obviously I'm not a GM. I don't know anything about it really. And then they signed Dante Fowler to what I felt like was a really good deal for him. And everything. I was like, oh wow, I guess that's not what they're trying to do. They definitely lost more than they got, I think.
No, and I'm with you on that 100%. And when we look at their draft, Aj Tyrell, Marlon Davidson, and Matt Hennessy, I thought their draft was okay. I'm not 100% sure about Aj Tyrell. I think he has some of the tools to be a very good Pro Bowl caliber corner. I'm just not completely sold, to be honest. Their draft was decent. It's always hard to project a draft before these guys have played a snap. But we'll kind of see. But I'm not thoroughly impressed as of now. How about you?
I kind of agree with you with Aj Tyrell. I think Marlon Davidson was their best draft pick. Just because Aj Tyrell is kind of wishy-washy for me personally. So I was looking at Marlon Davidson. I was like, oh, he actually might be their best pick in the second round.
Sure.
I don't think they got any of those guys that really kind of jump out at you. So hopefully they can put it together.
Yeah, and then when I look at their roster for this coming season, I think their roster as a whole is pretty solid. I think they have some questions, and a lot of those questions are about like age, injury issues. Um, they're not a super young team. They have some guys that are I wouldn't consider old, but could then it goes into the injury stuff with getting up there in age. And it's going to be interesting. How do you feel about the roster?
I go back and forth on it, honestly. Is I like their offense, don't like their defense at all. So I think that's kind of where I stand. I think their offense might be really powerful this year. It has a potential, but then I look at their defense. I'm like, oh wow, maybe I'm too high on them. So I feel like I'm going back and forth on them a lot, and my opinion changes on them all the time. And it's really just because I keep getting more and more down on their defense almost.
I understand that definitely. And for my biggest question about the Atlanta Falcons, this is going to be one that I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to be happy with, but I'm kind of curious with Julio Jones. He's one of the greatest receivers we've ever seen. He's first or second best receiver in the league for a long, long time. He's battled some injuries. He's played through most of them. But I'm wondering if this is the season that he takes a slight step back. And I'm not saying Julio goes from being the first or second best receiver in the league to the 30th best receiver. I'm not saying that at all. But, I just wonder if he kind of takes off his Superman cape and goes from being maybe the best receiver in the league to tier 2. You know what I mean? Not a huge drop off, but I wonder how much that impacts that Falcons offense because, if you don't double Julio, you're going to regret it. So I'm just kind of curious how that will affect if that does happen. How about you?
So I actually think I kind of agree with you. I think this year we almost see a changing of the guards between Julio and Calvin. I think that Calvin has more targets this year than Julio does, and it's almost like the younger guy, taking that step to take over the team. I still like Julio, and his biggest thing really is, he's always produced he had like 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He just, those touchdown numbers have never come.
Yeah.
And so I think it almost could flip this year, and Calvin can have all the yards, and then maybe Julio just gets peppered with some touchdowns. I don't know why. That's what I'm feeling, and it's a little changing of the guards this year between them two. I'm really high on Calvin this year.
I like that. And so when I'm looking at the NFC South, I think the Saints right now for me are the one team. I think right now the Buccaneers probably are the second best team, at least on paper. And I know a lot of people have Falcons at third, but I think the gap between Tampa and the Falcons is a lot bigger of a gap than the Falcons to the Panthers. I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that, but that's just kind of my feeling. I think I'm kind of a little bit more down on the Falcons than a lot of people are this year. How about you? How do you think they stack up in the South?
Yeah, and that's what, like I said, I keep changing. I think it's because I'll look at fantasy and all I'm looking at is their offense. So I'm like, oh man, Matt Ryan, Calvin, Julio, Todd Gurley, possibly healthy. And so then I get so high on their offense, and even Hayden Hurst. And then I start to look at this. I'm like, oh man, look at their defense. What's going on? What's about to happen this year? And so it's messing with me. So it's going to be tough to see. And so I definitely think that's going to be the hard part for them, is that the Saints and the Buccaneers will likely have really powerful offenses just like them. So, and which they have better defenses than Atlanta does. So that's why they definitely are in the top 2. And I have Atlanta number 3 in the division as well.
What is your prediction for this coming season for the Atlanta Falcons?
I have them at 8 wins, 8-8.
Okay.
Yeah.
I personally go ahead.
I'll just say I kind of was last year. I don't know why. I don't like Dan Quinn. I don't know why. I don't like him as a coach that much, and I could be wrong. He could be a good coach. Just in my head, I was kind of hoping he would get fired. I just feel like every year that they've done worse than what they should have done, if that makes sense. Under him.
I think that's fair. And he's a defensive coach, and that defense was just abysmal last year. I get that they don't have a ton of talent, but it was just a lot of mental errors and breaks in coverage. And I think that kind of has to fall on him because he is a defensive coach. My prediction is 5-11. And I'm just a little, like I said, I'm a little down on them. I have them at the same record as the Panthers. I think there's a chance they start off the season 0-4. I wouldn't be surprised they start the first 10 games as something like 2-8, 3-7. That's just looking at their schedule. That's what I'm kind of seeing. I could be wrong, and that's very possible. I don't love it. I'm down on Gurley this year. Yeah, I think Julio might take a slight step back. That defense isn't good. I just think there's a lot of warning signs where maybe they don't end up popping up. But there's reasons for concern for me, which kind of brings us to our last thing is what is your parting shots for this Atlanta Falcons team?
Well, let me ask you a question. So are you slamming the under on the Falcons? I think their Vegas total is 7.5.
I think I would. I think I would, yeah. Do you have any parting shots for the Falcons this year?
I just think Dan, like I said, I thought it would happen last year, and so I'm going to say it happens this year. Dan Quinn won't be the head coach of the Falcons by at least at the end of the year.
I think that's fair. Kind of my parting shot that I'm thinking is I think Russell Gage becomes a household name after this season. I think some people are aware of him, especially in like the fantasy community as, a third receiver. If an injury happens, he kind of steps up into a good situation. I'm not saying he's going to catch for 1,000 yards or anything like that, but I think he's going to be a guy that, more people are aware of. And now instead of just having a two-headed monster at the wide receiver position, I think they might have a third guy to worry about. So that's my parting shot. If you guys like the episode, click subscribe, show us some support, go follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And we appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.